Welcome to Intuitive Astrology with Molly McCord. Thank you so much for joining me today as we discuss the astrological energies of April 15th until April 22nd, where over this next week we have a very big, fiery Aries new moon, 2 Aries stelliums in play, plus we enter into Taurus season on April 19th at 9:38 p.m. Eastern Time, which will probably feel like a welcome, grounded presence after all the intensity that is unfolding during this particular Aries season. We currently have a super focus of planets in Aries with 7 planets in this first sign of the zodiac. And as we get to that Aries new moon on Friday, April 17th, we will have 8 planets in Aries. And so that includes Mercury now in Aries, Neptune, Saturn, Mars, plus the Sun, Chiron and Eris. And then the 8th energy entering into the sign will be the moon. So this means in your astrology chart, there's a lot going on here in the Aries house or houses in your chart. And because we have 2 stelliums in play, that means 2 areas of your life could be feeling this intensity and this desire to begin, this inspiration to create and move forward. But we're going to dig into that even deeper in today's show because there's some very important energetic layers here that are present at this time. And we're also going to look into more of what the Aries archetype offers in terms of our ongoing consciousness journey, spiritual growth, and how it's elevating us into more 5D energies. So to begin, on April 15th, the Sun is conjunct Eris at 25 degrees of Aries. Now, Eris is located beyond Pluto, one of the biggest dwarf planets in the Kuiper Belt. And in astrology, she's an archetype associated with raw feminine power, rebellion, disruption of unfair systems. She is known as the goddess of discord and strife because she was viewed as the uninvited feminine. So the Sun conjunct Eris brings up the energies of where you have felt abandoned, ignored, silenced, or treated unfairly. And Eris is the deeper emotional and energetic imprint that may leave on your psyche, and it travels with us through lifetimes. Eris is a very slow-moving energy, and so that means the archetypal influence is bigger than this present moment. It resides perhaps in your core frequency or in a soul imprint that might be more personal for you, especially if you have planets or points around this Eris energy in your natal chart. Eris is here to bring up what you need to declare from an empowered place. She represents where you're no longer rejecting yourself or dismissing your needs. She is where we become more fully embodied in our power, our raw power, and what that looks like that tends to be uncomfortable at first. She is not concerned with the status quo. She does not want to sit politely and discuss trending topics with others. Eris is a force of nature that could be deeply felt at this time, especially during this particular Aries season, because Eris is revealing where you're ready to embrace and love more of your raw feminine power more fully, without apology, without diminishing it or shrinking it. She represents your uncompromising identity, who you came here to be, without requiring permission or consent. And so this energy is quite strong right now, and it does continue to be in focus as we move towards the Aries new moon. Now, the Sun is conjunct Eris again on April 15th. And then on April 16th, we have many aspects that are exact, including the Sun being exactly conjunct Chiron in Aries at 26 degrees, while on the same day, Mercury is conjunct Neptune in Aries at 2 degrees, and Mars in Aries is sextiling Pluto in Aquarius at 5 degrees. All of this, again, is a part of the new moon energy, which is essentially in effect a few days before the new moon is exact. So that means you are receiving messages, emotional responses, clarity, and wisdom around what this new moon is meant to reset for you, where you are approaching a new beginning point. I'm going to get into that more fully as we progress through the show. But as we discuss these energies, just know that it's leading to a powerful, supercharged beginning that you are consciously declaring for yourself. And so as these aspects are unfolding, there's also an invitation here to go deeper into your own journey, into your own self-awareness, and to decipher, what does this mean for me? What is arising here for me to understand and see in myself? So the Sun conjunct Chiron brings up a sensitivity, vulnerability, or wound that you've been moving through and healing. That's because Chiron has already been here at 26 degrees of Aries, is returning to this degree point, and the Sun is bringing your conscious awareness into your healing journey, what you've learned about yourself, especially what resides below the surface. Chiron is a softening energy, and it seeks to find the medicine and remedy for the pain or the crisis. And so this can certainly bring up a crisis point or some kind of painful experience or healing theme that you've been working through. And this could be a week where you see it in a new light. You see it from a new level of consciousness as the Sun is conjunct Chiron. At the same time, Mercury in Aries is conjunct Neptune, and so there is a spiritual message here that you cannot deny. Mercury is the messenger planet, and the conjunction to Neptune, which is your higher self, is downloading a broader understanding of what you are seeing and learning about your self-identity, about who you came here to be, and what you are learning at this time that Mercury in Aries is digesting and integrating. The conjunction to Neptune means that the energy is more intuitive, flowing, and brings about transcendence. And so you might feel there is a higher perspective that you are recognizing now. There's something much bigger than simply yourself you're seeing. This could certainly be in the form of patterns, habits, soul growth themes. This could actually bring you into direct connection with one of your soul missions in this lifetime and show you what you have been moving through that is beautifully right on time. That's because of these two conjunctions we have on the same day, on April 16th. There is something here that the universe could actually be validating for you, affirming and saying, this is the thing you came here to heal. Do you see it in a different way now? Are you understanding it from a higher level soul perspective? This could all be a part of your new moon energy. This could also be beautifully empowering. And that empowering energy is also strong on April 16th with Mars in Aries sextiling Pluto in Aquarius at 5 degrees. This is a beautiful sextile. Mars is strong in Aries. He is a leader, independent, ready to go, to take it on, to assert himself. And as he sextiles that Pluto in Aquarius, there is a new desire to make moves that are empowered, controlled, and beneficial. Pluto brings in a surge of soul consciousness that directly relates to your empowerment frequency. This is making strong, bold, confident moves that are right on time. They're exactly what's needed to transform you and evolve you. This is where you might be sensing, I'm different. I feel it at a core level of my being. I feel the frequency shift that has been moving through me, and I'm putting it into action. I am now living from this new frequency. And that's a very important message at this time, because what is unfolding with all of these planets in Aries is bringing us into greater self-awareness around who we came here to be. And that includes what you have been moving through that is up-leveling you and your sense of self. So this would involve multiple layers of your own personal life experiences. This would include what you have healed at a core level, including inner child healing and all of those dark nights of the soul that perhaps have transpired on your journey. As I like to say, for many of us, we get our dark night of the soul punch cards, where you have 9 dark nights of the soul. You get the 10th one free, so congratulations if you're earning those punch cards. But essentially, there's many transformational experiences we have that bring us into the depths of ourselves. We're also learning what we are deconditioning and removing as it no longer serves us. It's no longer in alignment with where we're going and these new beginnings that are coming in. There could also be a sense of recognizing what you have deprogrammed from yourself, where you have even felt core emotional shifts at a cellular DNA level. And that is a big part of the rebirth at this time, is that there is grand support here for this new version of yourself that you've been creating, healing, and moving through, that's going to start to feel stronger and more steady after this new moon. And of course, that's something that only you would know. Only you would be aware of what that is for you. But that might be what you are picking up on here during these big Aries energies. Now, after these powerful aspects on April 16th, we then have the Aries new moon on April 17th at 27 degrees of Aries. It is exact at 7:52 a.m. Eastern Time. So depending on your time zone, you might start Friday with a fresh burst of energy and ready to go, since the Aries energy is also connected to the sun rising, alarm clocks going off, and a new day beginning. This new moon is conjunct Eris and Chiron, which are all at the ending degrees of Aries, 25, 26, and 27 degrees of Aries. That is one of the stelliums here in place. And then we also have, as I mentioned, that lineup of planets in the early degrees of Aries. Between 2 and 7 degrees, we have 4 planets: Neptune, Mercury, Saturn, and Mars, all sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. So these 2 stelliums in Aries are really important here because they're signaling a very deep shift in consciousness and energetic management that is elevating the Aries expressions and needs. So let's go into this a bit more, because I think this is a big part of the energy, not only on the planet, but perhaps what you might be feeling and sensing in your own space. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, and because of that, it represents where we had to separate from spirit in order to take a body, a physical vessel, and embody a self-identity in this lifetime. So Aries is actually a sign of separation, separating from your energetic essence, your soul, your spiritual self, however you define it. And by doing so, it creates separation that then can be something that operates unconsciously in the psyche through the desire to learn about who am I? That's an Aries question. Who am I? Who did I come here to be in this lifetime? How do I show up and learn more about myself? How do I demonstrate who I am? What am I drawn to? What energies call to me? And on the questions go, right? But essentially, Aries is where we become an individual sovereign being. But this can lead a very intense emotional imprint, especially across multiple lifetimes, if the energy of separation is never healed or understood. Because separation then becomes the me versus you dynamic. And this is where the Aries energy then becomes associated with competition, conflict, war, proving oneself, because there is a sense here of it's me against this person, or it's me living life on my own terms, and I'm coming up against other energies, other forces, whatever the case may be. Of course, there are areas of our life that are made for competition, such as athletics, debate club, certain sales environments, or just certain areas of life that have competition built into them, right? That's just part of how they operate. But we're talking about this from a higher vantage point of what the Aries energy is here to evolve and move through. And so there can be a strong desire to be oneself that is short-sighted, naive, unevolved, highly emotional, and even battle prone. And so the Aries energy is meant to move through those energies to become more self-aware and go into, what does this mean to me? What does this represent? What is it teaching me? And this is also what we can apply to every astrology sign, especially in their lower expressions. And so we start with their lower expressions to learn from them. So in Aries, it could be, what is anger teaching me? What is impatience revealing? What is impulsivity showing me? And there's always a deeper answer here that comes about when you become more self-aware and inquisitive. You start to see patterns, or you start to understand, this is what it represents for me, or this is what's happening in my unconscious self that's driving me forward. For example, there could be a strong driving need to compete or demonstrate that you are the best at something. But as you question it and dig into it more, you might realize, oh, well, that simply comes from a need for validation or self-value or self-love. And then once you're aware of that, you're able to generate it internally and give that to yourself, which then changes your intention and your motivation, because now there is no longer a need to compete or prove anything. Rather, the only thing you're competing against, if you will, is yourself. And so the higher Aries expression is, I'm just here to be the best I can be, to be better today than I was yesterday, to be better right now than I was last year. It's that need to improve oneself that can drive the Aries energy, which is internally focused and not about what's external at all. There can even be some deeper soul imprints here in the Aries energy, where in previous lifetimes you were a part of maybe ancient tribal battles, or you had to fight to survive, or you were a soldier in a very important war, or there was something you needed to take care of that could not be compromised or held back. You had to show up and fight for it. So of course, those would have been expressions that served you well in other lifetimes or timelines, or even where you're at now in your life. But as we evolve and as consciousness changes on the planet, we become so much more self-aware, and we understand what's going on within ourselves, and that we always have the power to make new choices and to grow that energy. And so there no longer is that need to fight. You can be courageous without conflict. You can demonstrate who you came here to be from a place of self-love and strength and power that has nothing to do with anyone else. And so this also starts to reveal one-sided competitions, where it becomes highly evident that it's a one-sided issue. We would call that a you problem. It's a you problem because it actually represents more of an internal conflict than an external one. In fact, one-sided competitions and one-sided conflict also reveal that there doesn't need to be a conflict at all. It was created and generated often from a highly unregulated nervous system, and perhaps from previous trauma, abuse, and unhealed aspects of self that become quite evident and apparent. And so the Aries energy is also needing to take care of oneself at these deeper core levels. Now, this is important because this new moon is conjunct Chiron. Chiron has been in Aries since 2018. So that means we have all had to meet ourselves unhealed. We've all had to face parts of ourselves that went through some very painful energies and painful cycles, including the trauma, abuse, rejection, or harm that maybe you've been holding and experiencing that was previously unexamined. So Chiron and Aries is showing all of us what we are healing in our self-identity so that we can be more self-loving and empowered in our authentic self, in our core truth. And so this is a new moon that can show you what you have healed, how far you have come, what you have transmuted, and how you've evolved into a new version of self. Conversely, this new moon can also trigger people to reveal what they have not healed, where they still have a lot of work to do that is their own responsibility and their own journey to take. So essentially it brings up how each of us are self-aware. Do you see yourself accurately? How do you see yourself? What do you see in yourself? And this is where the energy actually asks us to be more objective. Aries can be personal, subjective, and caught in a limited viewpoint of oneself. But if you take a stand back and you see yourself with new eyes, what do you see and recognize in who you are? Now, on a personal note, my mom is one of my best friends, and my mom has been my spiritual teacher, my first spiritual teacher throughout my whole life, of course, since she's known me since birth. And she has great wisdom that she has always shared with me throughout my life. She has the sun in Virgo in the 9th house, and she is able to state very clear, evident truths in one sentence. Like my mom can drop a truth bomb like nothing else. And it's so brilliant and insightful that it also brings about greater self-awareness. I realized that my mom has the spiritual gift of holding divine neutrality. Divine neutrality is the capacity to see things from an objective, neutral standpoint without bringing in personal overlays. And so throughout my life, my mom has been this beautiful, objective observer who has helped me detach and step back from situations and people that are not good for me, that are not for my highest and best interest. Also, she has continuously brought in to my consciousness what is not personal or what is not about me. She would often be able to see a situation and declare, what was going on there or what was happening. She could see the dynamics and the patterns. She would also be able to say, that's not true friendship. That's not true partnership. That's not in integrity. That isn't someone who is living their truth. That's not self-respecting. And so she can hone in on some specifics from her standpoint of holding divine neutrality that allows for greater detachment and objectivity to see things as they are. She would also continuously remind me, their choices have nothing to do with you. Their decisions, their actions have nothing to do with the beautiful, bright person that you are. You have to detach from that and see that people make choices from their viewpoint, from their standpoint. They take action based on what they deem important or beneficial. So I grew up with these messages, and I'll tell you at times I didn't always want to hear it, but wow, it supported me in detaching from other people's choices and actions even more fully, because everyone is on their own journey. Everyone is here living their own life, what we would call in their own timeline, activating their own algorithm. And ultimately, it has nothing to do with you, even if or even when they want you to be pulled into that narrative or that story. And this is part of our higher consciousness viewpoint, where we can see actions, choices, behaviors from that detached understanding. And from an energetic place, we know that the actions we take and energy we create in this lifetime will also create karma, consequences, and energetic kickbacks, either in this lifetime or in other lifetimes. So part of this Aries energy that's really fascinating is that for all the ways it brings you into perhaps a deeper understanding of your self-identity, it also shows you who you are not. It reveals, I am not that way. I am not in alignment with that person or that path. So this could be a beautiful time to consider who in your life has been significant in forming your self-identity, and how. How did they contribute to your self-awareness? and seeing things from both that subjective personal viewpoint of your journey, as well as the divine neutral standpoint of what is not your concern and what is not your reality or your journey. It can be very convoluted at times, where things can overlap or seem to be entwined. But as empowered creators of our reality, what are you choosing that is best for you, that is highest for you? What are you choosing that represents the energy you're embodying, that gives you strength, courage, confidence to show up and be yourself? No compromise, no shrinking, no diminishing, no negotiating away who you are, regardless of what other people are projecting at you. Ridiculous lies, ridiculous stories and energies that don't even require your attention or energy. No, you declare who you are and what you're about and stand strong in that. And that's part of what these two stelliums of planets in Aries are supporting you with, especially the ones in the early degrees of Aries sextiling Pluto in Aquarius. There is a new authentic force of yourself coming through. And one way that you are embodying that is by making conscious choices daily that support your energy. And so this brings us back to that energy of separation that Aries embodies. When you no longer have a sense of separation from yourself, from your power, from your essence, you move in the world with that energy field. And then when you pull in a connection to your heart, when you activate that heart chakra, when you have empathy and compassion for yourself and others, that fires up this wholeness that you came here to live and gives you more fuel for the higher consciousness that you're following and trusting. And so part of the Aries energy, the Aries archetypal journey, is to heal your unconscious feelings of separation, of conflict, of anger, to go deeper into the root cause of that for yourself, to be courageous enough to go into any discomfort, and to begin to reprogram yourself with new mindsets and mindfulness, healthier habits and actions, and to become more aware of your own trigger points. And this is where that Aries energy evolves. And as the new moon is at 27 degrees of Aries towards the end of the sign, this is a new evolutionary moment here in your self-identity. And how I'm seeing the energy is at the core seed of an apple, and how that is where the seed is changing its frequency. That core is rebirthing itself in the higher energy fields. And maybe you're sensing that or feeling it, but there's something interesting that happens here because it's a very internal action. We think of Aries as assertive and going forward and forward movement. And yes, that is accurate. But at an energetic level, there are core energy frequencies that are quickly evolving and changing, rebirthing themselves into a new frequency. And I'm feeling like part of this cycle is to hold the frequency, hold that frequency of your new self, of what has been healed and changed, of where you have embodied a new sense of self that is not separate from anything, but rather is connected to all that is the divine. In other words, you're rewriting a story here where you never left the divine. When you took a body and you became a physical human being, the divine came with you. It came with you. It's always been here with you. That is the new consciousness. That is what is moving us forward, is that this isn't about, oh, I'm separate from my soul or from spirit, or I left the home and safety of the energetic realms to be human and be separate. No, the shift is the divine came with me because I am the divine. And so how do you then move in the world and show up as yourself when you have that level of deep integration and empowerment? That is what this new moon is birthing. Should this align for you? Should this connect to you? But this is a rebirth of your sovereign divinity and how you choose to show up as the new human. Because the Aries energy, when it's not about competing or proving anything, it simply demonstrates. There's nothing to discuss. There's nothing to fight about. There's nothing to prove. It demonstrates, this is who I am. This is how I show up. This is how I live. And this will speak for itself. These actions will speak for themselves. What has been lived or accomplished, what you have been through, it speaks with the divine. It speaks in harmony with your soul mission. And I feel that there could again be great validation here that you are on purpose and in your mission if you're feeling stronger in your soul's divinity at this time. In fact, on a personal level, I was just celebrating that. I'm like, yes, I'm doing it. I'm living my mission. Everything is happening perfectly. Everything is unfolding in a way that supports what is here to be birthed and what is new. And so I was in this place of celebration, peace, and bliss because of the bigger picture and what is evolving now. And it's evolving through each of us. We do it together. It's us. It's each of us showing up in this frequency. And that's important too, is that as you enter into spaces, environments, even that next meeting that you have to attend in person, it's the frequency you hold that will speak the loudest. But it isn't verbal. It isn't in an email. It's rather in everything that you are. And it's your frequency that has the power to make change, to birth new potentials and new dynamics. So that is why I feel that this particular Aries new moon is where we are not only birthing new, more empowered divine self-identities, but it's also where we are being initiated into holding a frequency and not having to do anything else. You don't have to give it a sales pitch. You don't need to make it into a fancy diagram. You moving through the world, holding this new frequency is one of the best gifts you can give yourself and give the world at this time. On that note, we all know that there's a lot going on in the world around war, conflict, discord, harassment, obsession, disagreements, so on and so forth. Those are all of the lower Aries expressions that are also strong at this time. And so then it's also appropriate to check in with yourself and how you're managing those energies. How are they affecting you physically, emotionally, and energetically? Are you holding them or are you clearing them out? How do you take care of yourself when there is more intensity on the planet? It is going to continue. And what that means is that we become more adaptable and refined in honoring what we need to do for it. So this is understanding that as a beautiful vessel of energy, you might be feeling a lot right now that can absolutely result in rage, anger, discomfort, frustration, all the above. But one of the gifts here, again, is to go deeper into it and to get quiet, to put your hand on your heart and ask, what's under the anger? What is this response or what is this reaction telling me? Because anger is often a secondary emotion and it sits on top of something else. So if you get quiet, hand on heart, ask yourself some of these deeper questions, you might be surprised at what you feel and hear, because you might realize the anger is connected to a fear, a hurt, a pain, a boundary being crossed, feeling unsafe. And then you're going to feel into what your nervous system is responding to, a deeper truth. And with these energies, we're meant to express them safely, to not hold them in. Nope, let it flow, let it move, but do so with a healthy outlet, such as a physical release or writing it out, maybe talking it out if you need to. Say leave a voice note for a friend or just talk to yourself in the car. But this is where we are actually being brought into how we consciously regulate ourselves, how we're able to take charge of the feelings or emotions so that you're the one deciding what happens next and you're not allowing all of this fiery energy to overwhelm or overtake you, which honestly can be quite common right now. You might see it in others with road rage, crashes, accidents, fire, burns. Anything with inflammation is also related to Aries. Plus, Aries rules the head. So it's staying aware of anything that affects physically or otherwise the head, the brain, the eyes, the face. And keep in mind that with all this Aries energy, a lot more people can be self-invested right now, self-focused, self-involved, whether that's conscious or not. And so do keep in mind that nothing is personal. It's not about you. Allow this to be an opportunity to embody more of that divine neutrality, to be that objective observer who can describe something or see it in a new light and in a higher vantage point that brings about greater understanding of what is and what might be occurring. Now, all of this will need to be practiced as Mars makes a conjunction to Saturn in Aries at 7 degrees on April 19th. This is occurring right before the Sun enters Taurus on the same day. So Mars conjunct Saturn brings in discipline, focus, and clearer energy management. This Mars is being brought to some kind of stop or slowdown by Saturn. There could be boundaries or limitations here that you have to work with or work around. Mars in Aries wants to go full speed ahead, but here is that stop sign of Saturn. Saturn is the timekeeper that also represents it might not be time for something just yet, and it's necessary to trust that, to take a break and stop. Then as Mars moves forward away from Saturn, the energy begins to power up again, and there is more fuel for the fire. And it's interesting to note that this conjunction between Mars and Saturn in Aries is only happening once. It's only happening on April 19th at 7 degrees of Aries. In 2 years, when Mars is in Aries again, Saturn will have moved on and entered into Taurus. That will be in 2028. So they only have this conjunction once, which means there is also an important beginning point that's occurring with this conjunction in Aries. Something is being started that requires Saturn's planning, long-term strategy, practicality, and a realistic outlook on what can be developed. So there's an important starting point with this conjunction that is a more positive outlook on how it's happening, and it could be bringing you to a full stop in order to see what that is. Then on the next day, Mercury joins the conversation, as Mercury will be conjunct both Mars and Saturn at 7 degrees of Aries on April 20th. And this Mercury is bringing in new information, new solutions, new ideas. Mercury in Aries wants us to see things in a new light, in a new way, to open up to something that we didn't previously understand or know about. So this is where plans could be made that are concrete and actionable. This is where you might start formulating a new vision or direction that just might work. So April 19th and April 20th, this focus of planets at 7 degrees of Aries is signaling something significant is coming together, being birthed, and you might sense it or rather see it in your life. And that's because Saturn wants us to see things, wants it to be evident and real. This is also a time to go slower. Because both Mercury and Mars are conjunct Saturn, Saturn says stop and listen, and Mercury and Mars would rather blast off and move ahead, but there's a stop and listen. Something important needs to be said or understood. Saturn could also represent an authority figure in your life coming through or showing up April 19th or 20th, or even into next week. Someone who has something to share with you, new information, new guidance, new understanding, new plans. Again, the focus here is on new in Aries. And so this means you want to stay conscious of what does show up for you, because it might be a very important message, communication, idea, or plan. So with all this talk on Aries energy, it is actually welcomed to look at how the sun enters Taurus on April 19th at 9:39 p.m. Eastern Time and moves into the practical, grounded nature of this fixed earth sign. This is where whatever was initiated and started in Aries comes into some kind of practical form and limitation in Taurus, because now Taurus asks, how much will it cost? What is required? Do we have what we need? The sun in Taurus assesses what is, takes inventory and stock, and determines, is this worth it? Is this valuable to me? Do I want it? And so with all this Aries energy churning through us and moving around the globe, the sun entering Taurus is also going to bring in patience, calm, and a desire to look at the simple needs or basic requirements. Now, I feel that even though the sun is entering Taurus, which is significant, it could be less of an influence if there's still a big Aries energy surge happening. So we might have to adjust our frequencies and consciously look for those Taurus energies to tune into and connect with in order to adjust our nervous systems and come back down to reality. Taurus energy brings us into greater connection with grounding practices, with nature, with perhaps needing to connect with some of those negative ions that are so good for us. Negative ions are these charged particles in the atmosphere that are created through sunlight, water, dirt, trees, anything of nature, and they support us by increasing oxygen flow to the brain. That's why anytime you go outside, feet on grass, hands in the river, the energy is supportive of your overall health and well-being because it's enhancing your mood, calming your nervous system, and realigning you with the natural flows of nature. So this may be something that you seek out and desire going into next week. More quiet, more downtime, time to reflect and observe, to think things through even, to give yourself more time alone, especially if you can move into a natural environment that has these negative ions. We'll be discussing more of the Taurus themes in next Wednesday's show, but it might feel like less of an influence here with the strong Aries energies and this very dynamic Aries new moon. Now be sure to check out my video on YouTube discussing this new moon chart. I go through more of the specifics of what is happening on the new moon, and I also hope that gives you more ways to look at your chart to understand that 27 degrees of Aries in your chart is where this new sense of self is coming through loud and strong. You might be feeling it in a fiery, inspired way. And ultimately, this is a signal from the universe that new beginnings are here. It's time to start. It's time to go. This is action-oriented courage. This is making moves forward. This is initiating that new chapter that's been in the works or behind the scenes. Now it's go time, and now you're going to have even more support from the universe to do so. I feel like many people are going to see some awesome synchronicities, some things align that show you, yes, this is the path, this is the way to go. There will also be faster movement here with all of these Aries energies being activated and ready to move at Mach speed. I also have another video for you on YouTube discussing what is your soul ready to ignite. And I hope that assists you in determining what is right on time for you, especially at a soul level. So as always, thank you so much for joining me for today's podcast episode. If you weren't aware, I have switched back to the 2 podcasts a week format. That's because there is actually less astrology to be discussing. It doesn't warrant a 3rd Friday podcast anymore. We did have a lot going on. That's why I had the 3rd show from December until the end of March. But now we're back into a place of discussing these more fully only twice a week. But I do have, again, more videos and offerings for you on YouTube if you're looking for more that I can offer. So thank you so much for being here. Wishing you a beautiful, bright Aries new moon, as well as a lovely entry into Taurus season. I'll be back on Monday for a new podcast episode. Thank you so much for being here and wishing you a lovely day ahead. Take good care.